Hey everyone, I just want to introduce to you, as you can see on the video right here, is Spencer Fernando. You guys always post his blogs. I know you guys are all fans. So I figured it would be more fun to interview him and actually hear from him of all the things that you complain about and you really agree with him. So I figure, all right, let's go talk to him. Let's go see what he has to say. So, thank you, Spencer, for spending the time to take this interview. As you may know, your blog gets posted to 2019 and Say No to Justin Trudeau. We have about 24,000, 25,000 members combined. And they always use your blog, and I enjoy reading them. So I want to thank you for taking this time. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us as little or as much as you want, and how you got started with politics and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, I've been interested in politics since I was very young. Got involved in different political parties, so I've seen politics from across the political spectrum. And I've also done a lot of writing, so I kind of combine those two things together. And for me, I'm a very outspoken person. I have a lot of opinions, and in the political system, it's often tough. You're supposed to take the party line and do what you're told. Didn't work out too well for me, so now I just do my own thing on my blog, and I'm glad a lot of people like it.
Awesome. Now, what is your number one concern with the country at this moment and all the things that has happened ever since we got the new government in place?
Well, I think the big concern is that our leadership really favors international attention as opposed to actually fixing problems within the country.
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau is obviously very concerned about his global image, how the international press views him. So he does things that the press in other countries really loves, but there's serious problems in Canada that are going unsolved, and that's a big concern for me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the members in both groups see that. He's more concerned, or at least the Liberal Party is more concerned about other countries instead of really helping Canadians that are in real need. Now, we'll jump right ahead on a lot of the controversial, big issues. All right, like the M103. Liberals would always like to say that it's about religious freedom. It's about studying racism and racism and protecting religion with this M103. Yet, it specifically states Islam, and when asked to remove that to make it more general, they don't want to do it, yet they still claim it's for all religion. Why do you think they do that?
Well, I think it's really political correctness taken to an extreme. I mean, even Irwin Cotler, a former Liberal MP, very well respected, he said he thought it was going too far, and he thought it should have referred to anti-Muslim prejudice, which is obviously a real thing. I mean, there's a concern. Nobody should be discriminated against in the country. But there's a big difference between condemning prejudice and then talking about criticism of a religion. I mean, every religion is an idea, and in a free country, which we're supposed to be in Canada, you're supposed to be able to criticize religions and have different opinions on things. Yeah. So it's definitely political correctness taken to an extreme, and you can see that in how Justin Trudeau never even mentions, radical Islamic terrorism, right? He doesn't even say it. There was the attack in Edmonton. So someone who had an ISIS flag in their vehicle attacks a bunch of people, right? Yeah. And then Trudeau, not only does he not say anything about radical Islamic terrorism, he puts out a tweet or a Facebook post a few days later talking about white supremacy. So he doesn't even want to talk about the issue, tries to deflect it onto something else. So it's total political correctness, and it's a big problem.
Yeah, and how can you fight a real problem when you can't even admit or say, the real enemy, right? Or the real issue. Now, they say this is emotion, right? Do you think this will ever become law? I believe that eventually this will become law, or it's not even law, but people are now acting like it is a law. Do you believe that this will eventually become law?
Well, I think there's some people who are definitely going to push for that. I think there'll be a lot of resistance to that among many people. I think many in the opposition, the Conservatives, will be against that, many Canadians. But I think there are some people who will try to sneak it through. What they'll do is they'll say, it's a hate crime to criticize a religion, right? Or they'll say it's too hateful. So they'll never call it technically anything, it's a blasphemy law or anything like that, but they'll just make it a hate crime to criticize religion, and then people... The thing is, you almost don't even necessarily need to have penalties for these things. A lot of people when they just hear that the government is cracking down or making it a big problem, people will just censor themselves. And that's the bigger concern, right? Is that people will just say, well, it's just easier if I don't criticize a religion or I don't criticize anything. And then you're not really a free country if that's what people feel.
Right, and it's sad that people would adjust that way, forgetting that we are a free country, that we can say what we want, but in consequence we also have to hear other things that we don't want, right? And many people forget that kind of sort of thing. Now, do you think we're going to jump over to Qatar and this payout? Do you think Canadians will ever forget what Justin Trudeau did, paid him out, made sure that the victims can never go after the money? Not only that, he did it all, or he tried to do it all behind the scene. Do you think Canadian voters will forget that?
I think it depends on what the opposition does and what people like us do. Canadian patriots who are pretty, outraged by it have to keep bringing it up over and over again. One thing I learned in politics, in the political system is, inside a political party, you can get tired of an issue because you've been talking about it constantly. But the way the media works and the news cycle is so short, you do have to keep bringing things up over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So the opposition, they have to keep mentioning it. They have to put it in ads. They have to mention it in the campaign, or otherwise, a lot of people will forget about it.
Yeah, I think your message there will resound very, very loudly with our members, is to just keep pounding and reminding everybody and sharing everything so that people will not forget about these sort of things. 'Cause unfortunately, voters do tend to forget. We all do have a short memory of these things. Now, if you had a chance to speak directly to the Prime Minister, what would you talk to him or tell him about this tax policy? And as of this writing, really, they're now backing down with employee benefit taxing, which I referred to you when I was talking to you about it. It's like basically they're taxing coupons, right? And I'm sure they're going to go after that too if they had the chance. What would you tell him or say to him about that?
Well, I'd say I think for the good of Canadians, he should quit and take a job with the United Nations. I think he'd be a lot happier there. He seems to love going around the world pretending to fix problems without doing anything. So I think that'd be best. On the tax policy, I think he just needs to realize he has no idea what it's like to be middle class. Bill Morneau has or as I call him, Moneybags Morneau, has no idea what it's like to be middle class. Yeah. So they should actually just listen to people. People can't afford a tax increase. The government has to get their own fiscal house in order and just stop gouging people. I mean, enough is enough.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm not really even surprised, because one of the very first thing they did when they got into power was that they literally minimize or lessen the savings, the TFSA savings, allowable savings, without being taxed. And it's a head scratcher. People support that. Say, it's for people who doesn't need to save, or it's people with extra money. It's unfortunate that we have people thinks that way, and it's unfortunate that was the first thing that the government did. And so I'm not actually really surprised that this is what they're doing. In fact, I'm pretty sure they'll find other ways. I really am. I really do.
Yeah, there's just something that came out today. I think it's they're they're cutting a tax credit used by Canadians who have diabetes, because it can often cost up to $50,000 a year, right? So that's their latest tax grab. So it never ends.
It never ends. Yeah, for the ones who just heard this, it is on his website. You should go out and read that. Actually, I think they already started posting that on the group. Now, how badly do you think Canadians will suffer if Trudeau and his party continue to kill the energy industry?
Well, it's going to be a big problem. I mean, it's the way the equalization system works. I mean, it's pretty outrageous, right? I mean, Montreal gets a bunch of money from Alberta. Yeah. And then the Montreal mayor campaigns against energy projects in Alberta. Yeah. So it's crazy, right? But it's going to be a big problem, and it's very arrogant on the part of the government, because people like Trudeau, they don't live in neighborhoods that are connected to the energy industry directly, right? So they don't suffer when those jobs are lost. Yeah. But the whole country will suffer, because it will be poor. That means less money for programs, higher taxes, more debt, and fewer jobs. So it's a big problem. And the government seems they're just totally ignorant of it.
And that's really, as a country, that's our biggest product that we sell, right? That's like Walmart or a store getting rid of the product that they sell the most. We sell natural resources. That's how we make money. So to get rid of that, to not support it, I think I think it's really mind-boggling. It's a head scratcher for me. Now, with U.S. as Canada's biggest and really the only customer of the country, how do you think the government is currently doing with the NAFTA deal?
Well, it's too soon to tell. I mean, I think the negotiation strategy of the Trump administration is to make really big statements, demand a whole bunch, and then in some cases walk back to a kind of more middle road. So it's you can't really judge too much by what people are saying. The one thing that concerns me is how the government has spent a lot of time virtue signaling, talking about issues that everyone knows are not actually going to be part of negotiations, but they're just trying to play politics. So I'm concerned that any time they spent doing that is time they could have spent doing better on negotiations and getting a better deal for Canada. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I know when we had talked in the past, you guys say, this is something that we don't want Justin Trudeau to fail. We want him to succeed in this because it's for our country. It's for the good of the country. Of course, us conservatives, we are country first before we are party. Before we toe the party line. And you're very right. He is putting in negotiations items in there that has nothing to do with trade, and that's probably why a lot of people don't have the confidence because he's you have a tough negotiator, Trump. He's asking for the moon, the sun, and the star, and he will walk back, but unless Trudeau plays a hardcore negotiator, it's not gonna be easy. So, well, I hope he does well. I really do. So I'm with you on that one. Now, your editorial about conservatives and liberals being tied, and according to that latest poll, they're tied, and in 2019 it's still really 2 years away. What can people do to remind the Canadian voters about how bad this party is? What can we do to keep that message out?
Well, I think keep sharing my articles. That's one great way to do it.
Yeah, of course.
Just beyond that, just talk to people. The thing I think we have to watch out for is you might go close to the election, it'll be close, the polls will be tied, but the media is going to start turning against Andrew Scheer, and they're going to be pro-Trudeau all over again, right? So I think that's the big concern. Yeah. We really have to go around the media and keep forming alternative networks like my website or what you're doing on Facebook. People need to do those things because getting the message out through, obviously, the CBC or the regular media, that's not going to do it. A lot of them are going to shift towards being more pro-Trudeau, even more than they already are, closer to the election. Yeah. And unless there's a big group of Canadians who are going around that messaging, then that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, so really, basically, keep pounding that message. Keep sharing your blogs, all these interviews that we're going to be doing, and all that kind of stuff. We should keep sharing them. Now, the new federal NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh. People are afraid, or I'm also concerned that he's going to start playing the race card in order to guilt people to voting for him. What do you think about that?
Well, it seems like he's already doing some of that. I mean, it's pretty unfortunate. I think nobody should vote for him because of his background, and nobody should vote against him because of his background, right? It should be about his ideas and what he's doing. But one of the first things he did was start talking about racism in the country, right? And obviously every country has racism, but Canada's one of the countries with the least amount and one of the most open countries, and people of all backgrounds do well here. So I think he should be grateful for the opportunity he's been given as a leader, someone with a different background to have a chance to succeed in Canada. Yeah. And he should start saying some nice things about the country, because if he just goes around saying, oh, Canada's racist, or it's so unfair, it's terrible, I don't think that's going to work out too well for him.
No, I don't think so either, because I think Canadian people are very, very smart. They want substance. They want ideas. They don't, and this whole racist card is now being overplayed that people just kind of tune out. So I think he should stay away from that. I really do. Now, last week, we have the youngest world leader. He's 31 years old, Sebastian Kurz, Austrian. Very, very conservative. And then, we got Angela Merkel, who won the election, but with a weaker coalition. The last previous, and I forgot the three names, but I know there were 3 gubernatorial races in the U.S. They were all won by Republicans that are practically blue states. A year or 2 years, 2 years ago, I believe you guys put in a conservative leader, a premier in the province. And, my brother-in-law was really angry about what the previous government did with no tax, got elected, all of a sudden increased, a provincial tax. So... And then you have the Green Coalition and the NDP coalition, razor thin coalition here in the province. Does this say anything about the liberal agenda that people are just starting to get really tired of political correctness and just the overall liberal agenda? Does that say anything?
So I think it's kind of coming from two sides. There's from the right, there's a lot of anger about political correctness and the stifling of debate and discussion, and you can't say this, you can say that, blah blah blah. And then from the left and from the right to an extent too, mostly a lot of working class people realizing all the stuff we were told about trade deals and we're going to sign deal free trade with all these countries and all these tax policies are going to be great. It's not working out. I mean, the government likes to say, the economy grew 2% this year, but then you look at inflation and you look at population growth and it actually shrunk, right?
Yeah.
So most people are struggling. People feel like they're getting poorer every year. And we keep getting told, the economy's doing great. All these trade deals are so beneficial for us.
Yeah.
So I think both from the right and the left, people are voting against the status quo. So in BC, they voted against a more right-wing party because they were tired of things there. In much of Europe, they're starting to vote against left-wing or center-left parties. And in the States with Donald Trump, that was in many ways a vote against political correctness for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Because, he, in some of his ways, he campaigned a lot like a Democrat on certain issues. He wasn't as right-wing on the economy. He talked about free trade being a big problem, trade deals being a problem for the states. So that was really a rejection of the status quo in America. And I think until we start seeing things improve, especially economically, and see some of the political correctness go away, people are just going to vote against anybody. So the conservatives have to watch out too. If they win the next election and then they become very politically correct and they keep all the same policies, they'll get voted out next time as well. So they need to learn that lesson.
Yeah, I think many Canadians are also looking, and not necessarily want to have a Trump-like, but I think overall, around the world, conservatives and back to on our soil, we just want a politician who's just going to do their job to take care of the country and to take care of the province. We don't want a leader that's going to take care of us. We can take care of ourselves. We want a leader that's going to fight for the interests of the country. Well, Kate Spencer, thank you so much for doing the interview. But before we end this, I'll give you the last word. Let everyone know about your websites and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, I just say, I think people need to know that there's a lot more people who agree with people like us than it seems, right? If you watch the media, you never hear views like that expressed. I mean, a good example is the debate around illegal border crossers, right?
Yeah.
They do polls, they show 50-60% of Canadians think the border should be shut to people crossing illegally. Yeah. And then the media comes on and says, a small group of extreme people are against illegal border crossing, right? So they totally misrepresent it.
Yeah.
So I think we need to go around the media, get the message right out to people, share my articles, write things yourself too, get your message out there.
Yeah.
And we can fight back and we can push back against the status quo, but it's not going to be easy. There's a lot of people who have a lot of money and power invested in the Liberals winning the next election, and it's not going to be easy to push them out.
Yeah, definitely. Our platform is good, but we do have an uphill battle because we do have mainstream media against us. But, these kinds of things are really good. We will continue to share your articles. And once again, I want to thank you. And I'm sure all of the members in the group appreciate you taking the time. Thank you again, Spencer.